What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. So we're gonna go ahead and check out 10 video game moments that left us speechless. Now even though I haven't played a whole lot of games, there are some that I have played that have definitely left me speechless. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what these 10 video game moments are.
Certain moments in certain games blow your friggin' mind. Your jaw drops and there are just no words. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on Gameranx, 10 video game moments that left us speechless. Starting off with number 10, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, using Ultra Hand for the first time. It's rare to find a game where one of its central mechanics just feels completely mind-blowing the first time you experience it, but Tears of the Kingdom is really something special when it comes to this. In Breath of the Wild, your main powers have a ton of utility, but they're just nothing compared to the abilities you unlock at the start of Tears of the Kingdom. They're all amazing in their own way, but the most impressive is, of course, the Ultra Hand. It's a power that seems totally incompatible with an open world game. Lets you just pick up basically everything, manipulate it, and attach it to other objects. The first time I used it, I thought there would be a catch somewhere, but as much as I thought, yeah, the trailers are cool, but a lot of this stuff falls apart after a few seconds of using it, I was pretty legitimately blown away by it. It's just legitimately insane to think about just picking anything up, attaching it, and there's not really small limitations about it that keep you in a certain area or something like that. But this game basically lets you approach it however. Combine the powers of the Ultra Hand with the many Zonai devices you're going to come across, and you can make some really absurd vehicles and structures.
I never even finished my Breath of the Wild on my Switch because I got
never been a mechanic in an open world game
at a boss
quite
fight
like the
that I
Ultra
couldn't
Hand.
beat.
It's one of the most ambitious and yet polished mechanics I've ever seen in a video game, and I still can't help but marvel at it when I take a step back. And number 9 is God of War, bringing back the Blades of Chaos. 2018's God of War felt like a fresh start for the series. It's a reboot in everything but name, and just a drastic departure from what the series originally was. The Blades of Chaos were out, and the Leviathan X was in. And for the first dozen or so hours, that seemed like that was all there was going to be. The new close-up camera system and the entirely reworked fighting made it seem like Kratos' old weapon would be pretty incompatible with the new game, but they actually made it work, and it is cool as hell.
Yeah.
What's so great about this reveal is that it's a major turning point for both the story and the gameplay. It's showing Kratos starting to acknowledge and accept his past, and at the same time, it unlocks an entirely new weapon for you to play with. The slow build-up and the music leading up to the reveal of the actual blades is just masterfully done, too.
I was excited to see that. I was like, ooh, there they go. It was probably my favorite weapon. My favorite weapon in that game was those Blades of Chaos.
The first time you get to swing these things, it just feels like old times. It's incredibly satisfying. Yep. Both new God of War games have plenty of jaw-dropping moments, but this one remains one of our favorites for how it combines so many things into a single reveal. There's nostalgia for old games, an exciting turn story, old game. And an awesome gameplay mechanic, all rolled into this one single perfect moment. At number 8 is Super Mario Odyssey, capturing the T-Rex. Nintendo really went buck wild with their classic series. Breath of the Wild was a huge shift away from the Zelda games, and they've only built on it with Tears of the Kingdom. And while Mario Odyssey isn't as much of a seismic shift for its series, it feels really fresh because of the cappy mechanics. The best of which is, of course, capturing. It's not possession. It's officially called capturing. Capturing? Get it? Yeah? It is possession. And it opens up so much of what Mario is without changing the feel of a Mario game. At first, you're stuck capturing basic things like frogs and Goombas, nothing too far outside of Mario game's comfort zone. And you eventually run into this somehow super realistic T-Rex. It's kind of just chilling on this rock, minding its own business, but if you throw your hat at it, it grows a little mustache, and you control it.
Oh, look at that. It does have a, okay.
The camera has to zoom out. It's so big. You're controlling something so large relative to the map. And it's the moment where you realize, oh, Super Mario Odyssey is something different. And you know what? The game manages to throw these kinds of curveballs at you constantly in a way that doesn't feel forced. And that, in and of itself, is amazing. And number 7 is Prey breaking the apartment window. Arcane's Prey has one of the best opening sequences of any game, period. And it all comes down to this one moment. At first, everything seems really mundane. Your character wakes up in their apartment, takes a helicopter to the office, undergoes some tests. Pretty seamless, at least at first, but then everything resets, and that's when the facade starts to fail. The game gives you some time to figure out for yourself what's really going on. So when you pick up some piece of junk and chuck it through the window to get outside, it reveals to you that everything's fake.
Whoa.
The rest of the game is going to contain a lot of unexpected stuff. And what's really impressive about the whole thing is how it actually works. Using holographic screens and moving walls, they're able to create the illusion of a normal day. And you can walk through the whole thing again, only this time with all the smoke and mirrors revealed. The fact that it all actually works and the game doesn't fake any of this, that's the speechless part we're talking about here. Breaking free of the illusion is itself an awesome moment, but then seeing how they did it is almost more impressive. It's still one of the best openings to any game ever, up there with Bioshock. And where Bioshock is mostly just spectacle, the opening of Prey also serves a gameplay function. It puts you right into the headspace to make you think outside of the box and accomplish things in a mode that it calls for. And number 6 is Uncharted 4 and The Last of Us Part 2, The Rope. Naughty Dog might be the masters of tiny little details in games. The amount of ultimately pointless but amazing stuff they sneak into their games, it's totally incredible. I could easily talk about probably hundreds of different things here, but I gotta single out the ropes. If you've been playing games for a while, you know exactly how janky ropes are in games. Even now, they're notoriously crap looking, and they don't act right. And the reason is, take anything that requires complex physics with a lot of different collision points and articulation, and for the most part, it's eventually going to fall apart or look fake. At least at some point. Except in Uncharted, and especially The Last of Us Part 2, where the rope physics are nearly perfect. The part that really leaves me speechless is how you can actually wrap them around parts of the environment. It's unheard of in basically any other game. They get it so right. It's a small moment, but the part where you use the winch to pull up your car in Uncharted 4 is incredible. Just the way the rope realistically wraps around the tree. It feels next-gen even now, and the simulation keeps up with it incredibly well. Last of Us Part 2 goes even further. It throws in multiple puzzles where you have to use rope in the environment to progress, and it's all totally natural looking. I don't know what black magic they're using to make this all work, but yeah, it's so small, it's simple, really, in terms of what life is like. A rope isn't really that impressive. But to do this correctly, after hundreds, if not thousands of games not doing it correctly, it's just really impressive. And number 5 is Elden Ring. Anytime you expand the map, it was always assumed that the open world of Elden Ring would be relatively small. The developers never made an open world game prior to it, and all their previous games were set in these really tightly constructed, highly connected areas that were mostly linear, and you knew pretty much where you were going for the most part at all times. Why wouldn't you assume that Elden Ring would just kind of expand on that, dip its toe in? But that's not the route they chose. It does fake you out at the beginning. It starts off with a map that's pretty small and zoomed in. It's the starting area of the game. Borrowing a page from Breath of the Wild and the Great Plateau, actually. It's just they don't let you know that there's anything beyond the Great Plateau. And physically, it's not super different from Breath of the Wild. However, the way previous From games are, as well as how it reveals itself, the way that you explore and have the map get bigger and have new areas open up, it's got a wow factor that drops something completely new into the From formula. And this leads you to a lot of speechless moments. Like, for many players, the elevator that takes you down to the underworld, that's the big speechless moment.
That was wild. I actually found that by accident. I found this area by accident. And for others,
it's when they first look out over the massive second major zone of the game, Liurnia. And it just keeps going like that. The first time you see the capital and realize you can go everywhere in it, like the city's not just for show, or when you open up the secret door and you find there's an entire dungeon in the volcano manor.
Oh, I didn't get a chance to fight this thing. This is like a never-ending game. I didn't finish Elden Ring at all. At
Like I
some
said,
point, I'll
it's
jump
kind of
back
taking a
on it.
page out of Breath of the Wild in that it starts you off in a relatively smaller area, but the way it reveals it is just nothing like Breath of the Wild. Some reveals in Breath of the Wild are pretty epic, but a lot of the other ones are not. You just kind of go somewhere, and you're like, oh, this is different. Whereas in Elden Ring, you go somewhere, and they're like, check out how different this is! Are you not impressed? And you are very impressed. How could you not be? And number 4 in the Outer Wilds, the Inhabitants Eureka moment. This is another one of those games where there's a lot of things to pick from, but for this entry I'm going to focus on the Echoes of the Eye expansion. It's absolutely brilliant, and I think you'll understand exactly why in a second. So the core of it is that you explore this mysterious vessel that's hidden in the game's normal solar system. A lot of the original's mechanics come into play here, but this DLC also introduces some new mechanics, and does so in really brilliant ways. Probably the wildest realization is when you realize you're not alone, and suddenly it becomes the most terrifying horror game of all time. With most horror, you know what you're getting into, but here there's no clue. I mean, Outer Wilds is not a horror game. Suddenly, it is. And that's not the only big twist. That's the first one. The second one's even crazier. Eventually, through exploration or just experimentation, it becomes more and more obvious that the dark world is actually a simulation and has glitches you can exploit. The one that really left me speechless is when you put down the lantern and walk away from it. In any other game, you'd just be wandering around in the dark, but in the simulation, it actually takes you out of the normal rendering distance, which allows you to see the world in a much more rudimentary way. The inhabitants, who were frankly terrifying before, are pretty much completely neutered in this context, and it's really satisfying when you finally put the pieces together. And number 3 is Bloodborne falling into the lake. You know the story by this point. When Bloodborne starts, it's about werewolves. It's not too supernatural, but there's clues hidden around that there's something more going on. Those clues are disquieting, but it's this part where everything really goes off the deep end. At the school at the end of the Forbidden Forest, it seems like you hit a dead end. Like there's a balcony overlooking the lake, but there's nowhere else to go. The trick there is you're meant to fall into the water. The moon is reflected on the surface, and for some unknown reason, this takes you to a surreal area where you have to face off against a creature unlike anything else you've seen in the game at this point.
Ew. Ooh.
And when you kill it, all hell breaks loose. A bizarre, frankly disorienting cutscene plays.
Oh, that's weird.
And when you wake up, you're back in Yharnam, but everything is very different. The sky is a sickly purple, people have become freakish monsters, and giant alien creatures are clinging to the walls of the buildings. And here's the thing, none of this is actually new. It's all been there the whole time, you just didn't have the insight to see them. Now, all of it is revealed, and you're not dealing with werewolves, you're fighting outer gods. It's one of the biggest escalations in gaming, and just an all-around shocking reveal. And number 2 is Dishonored 2's Clockwork Mansion. In many games, cool visuals don't always make for the best levels. Usually when you get to a place like the Clockwork Mansion, it's all just set dressing, and it looks nice from a distance, but it doesn't serve a function. Not the case here. The moment you hit the switch, and an entire room transforms before your eyes, it's impressive.
Who would build something like this? And why?
But the real speechless moment happens when you realize that it's not just about changing the room layouts. You can actually get behind the walls and find secret passages. And it's because this stuff is not faked. The mansion actually has a place for every wall panel and object, and you can actually see how it all works from behind the walls. It's not just visually interesting. It makes for one of the best stages in a game already packed with fantastic levels. It's showy, but the thing that makes it truly great is how it actually works. Of course, not all of it is physically possible, but it
looks
depicts
cool.
it as if it were physically possible. And a lot of the time with stuff like this in a game, they don't. Here it's, hey, look at this crazy thing. And if you get behind it, you can see how the machine works. It's wild. And man, thinking about it makes Redfall disappointing.
My mind won't stop turning.
And number one is the witness when you notice the environmental puzzles. That the game can hide so much in plain sight is a mind-blowing thing. Right where the entire game begins, you return to that
different.
spot at the end of the game, and it just cements how much your understanding of the world has changed. It's amazing. At first, it seems like the gameplay in The Witness is completely divorced from the environment. It's just a nice place to wander through while you're dealing with the actual meat of the game, which are the puzzles. You're primarily just exploring the world to find panels to solve, and that's what it's really for. It looks cool, there's no doubt about that, but that's all it is, right? No. When you start to notice the little patterns in the world that almost look like puzzles, that's when you're right on the verge of getting it. Like suspicious circles and lines that look a little too perfect not to be something. That's where the real speechless moment happens. You figure out that the panels aren't the only place you can solve puzzles. They're also the environment. The discovery completely changes the approach to the game, and it's a huge discovery that makes you feel like a friggin' genius when it clicks. A few bonuses here for you before we
I'd
let
be
you
interested
go.
in
That's
playing
right,
something like that. I like puzzle games.
Titanfall, Hollow Knight, and Returnal. Titanfall's effect and cause there's like a time travel mechanic they just throw in the middle of the campaign and mess around with the fabric of space-time. It doesn't feel like it's going to happen. It doesn't have any indication it's going to happen. It's just, oh, hey, whoop. And it's one of the best levels of all time. It throws twists and surprises the whole damn experience, and it's so smartly implemented. It's just really fun. Then there's Hollow Knight entering the City of Tears. The first few areas of Hollow Knight follow the Metroidvania formula pretty tightly. It's also relatively closed off and contained until you reach the underground capital called the City of Tears. That's when the massive scope of this game finally comes into focus. This one spot where you can sit at a bench, look out over the city while this haunting piano score plays, is just a standout moment. And finally, Returnal, Nemesis and Beyond. When you reach the White Shadow broadcast, it seems like that's the end of the game.
God.
The boss you fight here, Nemesis, it's completely nuts. You fight it in this endless void with platforms appealing beneath you. If it's not final boss material, I don't know what is. And when you defeat it, it seems like everything's over. The main character gets rescued, they return to Earth, and then for some reason things keep going. You fast forward through their entire life, ending with them dying of old age, but they're still stuck in the endless life cycle. So they reappear on the alien planet all over again, only now everything's different. The whole sequence is absolutely crazy. Just one of the all-time greatest fake outs, and it seems like the end is actually just the beginning. Kind of like what I did there with those bonus points. This is the actual end, though. Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter, @FalconTheHero. And we'll see you next time, right here on Gameranx.
Pretty cool. I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of other games that should have been on this list. But he's only put 10 on there. The one that stood out to me was God of War and the reveal for those Blades of Chaos. That to me was absolutely crazy. Like I still feel the excitement that I felt when I saw those blades. And those were my favorite weapons to play with. So I absolutely love it. But leave your comments down below. Give me your thoughts. Let me know if you agree with this list and which one do you think stands out to you. Go over there and follow Gameranx. And as always, if you haven't done so, please subscribe to my channel, hit like, share, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so you guys can get notified whenever I pop up on your feed. I'll see you guys later. Toodles!